The WWE Draft 2024 is in the books. What's going on, guys? Happy Monday to you, and welcome to your Monday Night Raw review for April 29th, 2024. WWE Draft Night 2 just wrapped up on Monday Night Raw. 6 total rounds tonight, 4 selections each, I think, per round, and a bunch of left undrafted names as well that is probably ongoing right now as we speak on social media, much like it was on Friday. What I've been noticing in the chat already and on some of the social media feeds is that a lot of people have felt that this year's draft was relatively underwhelming. Now, on Friday, I thought we all kind of agreed that it was pretty much boring, but I thought they could really bounce back here on Monday Night Raw with a lot of names in the Monday pool that could be shuffled around. But, you know, at the end of the day, I think a lot of fans are looking at this draft as somewhat disappointing. Now, I'm going to start this by kind of maybe defending WWE on this one a little bit. The reason I think that a lot of fans might be instinctively saying that this draft was a letdown or boring or underwhelming or nobody of any significance really changed brands or anything like that, I think part of that is because we go into these drafts with too many expectations. Triple H even said, recently that, the goal here is not just to swap both brands. We don't want every single component moving. And if you notice, we'll have to go through the draft on night 1 and night 2 and kind of relook at these names again. But most of the people who switched brands, who got drafted from one brand to another, aren't really involved in anything at the moment storyline wise. Maybe some of them are, but for the most part, they weren't embroiled in any sort of, big feud that's dominating their brand. I think this was mostly designed to keep, the core and the nucleus of these brands intact and to change around some of the pieces or components with maybe 1 or 2 big changes of some, semi to mid-level top stars and some call-ups from NXT. So when you think about the expectations, the way this draft fell in line with what our expectations really should have been. But I think naturally the draft just kind of makes us think that they're going to make some big, crazy moves. Back in the day, we saw a lot of crazy moves with drafts and stuff. But since they kind of locked in all of the champions, all that really left was some of the major players like Seth and Punk and Drew and Judgment Day and things like that. And I didn't see really a lot of those players moving. I didn't see Seth leaving, not with Becky, the world champion over there. I couldn't really see Punk and Drew being split up since they're, in the middle of a feud. So it's either transfer that entire issue over to SmackDown or just keep them together on Raw, and then some of the NXT call-ups were pretty cool and whatnot. Those were different. But, for the most part, I think that the only major star that I was really expecting to jump was Gunther. Gunther really surprised me. I thought Gunther and Ludwig purposely broke away from Vinci last week or the week before, so when Gunther and Ludwig get drafted, they can leave Vinci on Raw so he can be a single star or something like that. I had that one wrong. I thought Gunther would be one big star to change brands. I also thought they might draft Jade Cargill to Monday Night Raw, and I think that would have been really fun because Jade and Bianca have got a tag team title match at Backlash on Saturday, which they're going to win. So I thought it would have been cool if you have them tag team champions that can float brands, but as soon as they lose the titles, they have to be split back up. So I thought maybe they would draft them on separate brands. But again, that might get a little too confusing. And one good thing, one positive I will say about this draft is that it wasn't as convoluted or confusing as it was in the past. Even as soon as Nia Jax came out tonight, the first thing they said on commentary, the draft does not take effect until this week, so Nia Jax can be here tonight. It was also nice to see them not draft people who are in title matches. AJ, Jey Uso, Tiffany, and Naomi all have championship matches at Backlash, and they all stayed where they were. And that was one thing that I didn't want to see happen, was to see somebody get drafted to Raw who's got a match against a SmackDown champion, and then right off the bat, you're causing belt confusion when you've already taken the time to create new titles and make them exclusive to their brands and lock in your champions. You're already, going to gobble that up on your first show. So I actually like that they kept everybody together there. Same thing with the Street Profits. The Street Profits have got a match coming up at some point. I'm not sure if it's at the pay-per-view or not, with Waller in theory. So I didn't want to see the Pride really come to Monday Night Raw. They should stay where they are as well. So some of these moves to me really made a lot of sense. I was expecting Raw to get one or two of SmackDown's many factions, and they did pull in two of them. They got the LWO and Damage Control. So those are big moves. I was even thinking they might send Judgment Day to SmackDown, leaving Priest all by himself on Raw with his championship and no crew. So those are a couple of things I might have liked to see, like Judgment Day leaving Priest high and dry, not their fault, just getting drafted. Maybe Gunther going to SmackDown, and maybe do something a little bit different with Jade and Bianca, maybe. But otherwise, I'm mostly okay with what they did, but I can understand fans thinking that it was a little bit, maybe underwhelming. And another problem that they have is trying to make something make sense in a world that's completely nonsensical. I appreciated them trying to make the draft a little bit more realistic, because what I really hated is the lazy years when they were just flashing the stars on the Tron and then stopping on one. And that was just so weak and so lazy. But at least when you do it like randomized like that, you can put everybody where you want to put them. And then you don't have to worry about the logic of why people are being selected over others. As much as I like Tiffany Stratton, the Pride, even who else? LWO, Legado del Fantasma. All of these names came and got drafted before Drew McIntyre, who won the championship at WrestleMania for 5 minutes, which they brought up several times tonight. But before Drew McIntyre, one of the top stars in the whole company, went that late. And so I'm thinking that maybe to avoid some of this is maybe go back to how you did it before, when the GMs would pull the balls out of the tumbler or the randomizer, and you just pull balls and then you can make it seem like it's random, but that allows you the behind the scenes creatively to put all of the wrestlers where you want them. And that way you don't have fans questioning, why the hell did you pick this person before this person? Or why is Laya Valkyrie being picked over Drew McIntyre? Shit like that. You don't have to wrestle with those if you just do it randomly. So in terms of how they set this draft up, I'm kind of in the middle on it. Like, it's way better than it was in recent years. I thought the drafts were incredibly lazy and extremely phoned in. Probably in the last, 4 to 8 years, I'd say. It's just been a bunch of shit. So Triple H did make it a little bit better. They tried to give it a feeling of realism, having the draft rooms or the war rooms. They had some guest presenters on both nights here announcing the draft picks, including Stephanie McMahon, which we'll talk about in a minute. She was out there to announce, I believe, round 1, correct? So that was, it was round 1 she announced. So the draft was set up okay, but at the end of the day, we're talking about pro wrestling here. We're talking about kayfabe, and then you have to do the draft pools so you can allow each show to have equal star power in their drafts, because if the whole roster was available, then you just draft, everybody on the first night and you'd be left with all the mid-carders and below on Monday. So I think maybe some of that needs to be changed up. And maybe next year do a randomizer thing, or Triple H can ask Aldis and Pierce, hey, you want to roll the dice and do a randomizer, and that way WWE can just do everything they want, make the moves that they want, without having the fans needing to question it or whatever. You know what I mean? So that's kind of my thoughts on it. I'm gonna reserve my criticism for the draft because I didn't really expect to see a lot of huge moves. There was a couple moves I was surprised about. Like I said, Gunther not going to SmackDown surprised me. And he's with Ludwig, right? And Ludwig and Tiffany are a couple. So I had a lot of those couples in mind. I'm like, Becky and Seth are going to stay together. Bianca and Tez are going to stay together. And also Candice and Johnny Gargano. We saw them drafted the same brand tonight. So I was thinking a lot about that and thinking, well, maybe WWE is giving couples consideration who are married with families and kids. Candice and Johnny have a kid. Becky and Seth have a kid. So they want to be mindful and supportive and respectful to that. But if you're just dating, oh, fuck, you're on your own. You know what I mean? So I think maybe Ludwig and Tiffany aren't quite there yet to where WWE is going to really worry about keeping them on the same brand because they got business to conduct. But I did have a lot of the couples in my mind thinking about them, thinking WWE really wasn't going to be splitting them up most likely. So we'll go through it here. We'll go through night 2 and where everybody wound up. Some of the, I guess what I'll say here before we start is some of the moves that did not surprise me that I had right. I did kind of call Damage Control moving. I thought they might move to Monday Night Raw since there's no champions over there. You can move that whole group. So I wasn't surprised about that. Not surprised that KO stayed on SmackDown, or that Jade stayed on SmackDown for that matter. Not surprised at all that CM Punk and Drew McIntyre stayed on Raw since they are in the middle of their feud, which was awesome tonight. And also, Braun Strowman is back being drafted to Raw. I knew that was going to happen too because it was reported today that he was spotted in St. Louis. So if he was going to be drafted to SmackDown, he would have been on SmackDown on Friday. So when I heard he was in the building, I'm like, oh, he's going to be on the show. They're probably going to draft him, and then he's going to come out just like Carmelo Hayes did on SmackDown or something like that. And he did come out, so I had that one right as well. I did have Tiffany wrong. I thought Tiffany would stay on SmackDown and Gunther and Kaiser would join her. Once Gunther and Kaiser got drafted to Raw, I thought Tiffany would also get drafted to Raw, but I was kind of against that idea. Like, I don't want to draft people to Raw who have a title shot against the other brand's champion this weekend, but Bayley's going to retain anyway, so does it really matter? I thought for sure Tiffany would come to Raw. She did not. She is staying on SmackDown. Another draft pick that didn't surprise me, Nakamura going to SmackDown. I kind of had that sniffed out, and Raw did pick up the LWO, including Carlito. We'll talk about that later. And Judgment Day staying on Raw, I felt like needed to happen. Naomi, of course, being on SmackDown because I'm assuming when Jimmy Uso comes back, Jimmy wasn't in the pools either. Jimmy and Roman will probably be on SmackDown when they come back, so that's why Naomi's over there. Chelsea and Piper left. I loved that. Adam Pearce is done with her. And I guess that's about it. Oh, and the Final Testament. The Final Testament coming to Raw, I knew they would pick up Cross and Crew. There was nothing left for them to do on SmackDown anymore. So we'll kind of break this down as we go through it. Welcome, by the way, to your Raw review, like I said, for April 29th, 2024, WWE Draft Night 2, and mixed emotions about it. I'm not going to be too hard on it, though, because I think what it comes down to is expectations. I think when you go into this thing, I think our brains, and not just you guys, me too, like we all probably do this, I think our brains just kind of naturally think or assume that we're going to see a lot of big changes, but that's not really necessary. This is just to kind of clean up some stuff. They did some belt, they cleaned up the belt situation there, which I really appreciated. And then I think both shows are retaining their core stories, Judgment Day, Punk, Drew on Raw, Bloodline stuff on SmackDown, and then moving around some of the components and the undercard to that. Maybe one could argue they could have done a little bit more, but I might be one of the only podcasters or YouTubers that is not going to be shitting on the draft that hard, because when you really look at it, for those of you who think this draft was a huge disappointment, what were you expecting to see? Because there's some moves that you just can't see, or you just probably weren't going to happen. They probably wanted to keep that Punk and Drew issue on Raw and not mix that up with Cody and the Bloodline and everything over there on only a 2-hour show. So you really wouldn't want to move them, and then, of course, some of these factions maybe, but with the champions locked in, what moves were you expecting to see other than just completely swapping the two rosters, what point would that make? If you ask me, this is actually, you can look at the silver lining here and say, hey, the fact that they didn't make a ton of crazy moves actually bodes well for their plans and their stories. Doesn't mean they have a whole bunch of people they don't know what the fuck to do with, so they're switching them around, trying to change them up and give them something fresh to do. They didn't have to do a whole lot of that. They have plans and stories in place for a good amount of their talent. And I think the moves here were made to just kind of better round out the shows and rosters. So, when you look at it like that, it might not seem like it up front, but what they did on Friday and tonight might actually, help the product in the long run, kind of getting these rosters a little bit more organized. And granted, we do this every year. We'll do it again next year. Some of these moves won't stick or they won't hit right and they might change some stuff up. But, for the most part, I wasn't really expecting them to completely turn the rosters upside down. You know, I just thought there would be a few moves, and that's what we saw here tonight. So that's what we'll talk about. Hope you guys are having a great one. Let's go to the chat, say hello to everyone. Please do me a big, fat, huge favor and smash that thumbs up button. We are on an algorithm skid. Happens, no big deal. We're going to be on an algorithm upswing before we know it. We just got to weather the storm for the next couple of months. I know the pattern now on YouTube. We start going real hard, then we stop, go real hard, then we stop. So we're in that plateau here where we kind of just stop gaining any subscribers for some reason, but it's going to be short-lived. We'll be on the uptick yet again, but I need the help from you guys, my subscribers, my members, my homies in the meantime. So give this video a thumbs up. Please tell your friends. And if you are watching this and not subscribed, I would love it if you would stick around with us for the long haul, because this is a fun channel. And I hope you guys are also having a great Monday. Let's say hello to some channel members like Zane G. We got 7th season in here. Zach Palgett, Sonic Plays, Denny Down Bad is in here as well. Mike Witt is in the house. We got Nick Musser and the Juliet gifting out a good mic work membership to Superman Bass Fisher. Right on. Nicely done. Welcome to the family, Superman. We also have Joshua Aparicio here and Barry MK hitting us with $5. Okay, but here's the real question. What comes first, milk or cereal? Cereal. That's the way I've always done it. I've never once poured milk in a bowl and then cereal on top of it. I think you're a sociopath if you do that. I do. I think you should be jailed. You should be jailed if you put in the milk first. It's not how you do it. It's not how you do it, Barry. I don't know. Maybe Hawaii's different. Maybe they just do shit. Maybe you get a big bowl of Spam and then pour milk on it. Who knows what you guys do over there, Barry? I'm going to be there just a couple months. I'm excited. Good to see you, man. Jake the Aerial Assassin in the house as well. And that rounds out the channel members. Also good to see Tony in here. Rodrigo. Who else? I've got Ronnie Matthews. We got the new one. Also Misfit Wrestling Podcast up in her. Ben Espinoza is here as well. We got David Brown all the way from Scotland. Bro, are you going to Clash of the Castle? I hope you are. We got Sex Machine in the house. That makes 2 of us. Ronnie Matthews and Indiana Minotaur. Good to see everyone here this evening for whatever kind of audience we're going to have on this whack-ass draft Monday. So good to see everyone. And we will start getting into our business here in 1 second. Let me just give a refresh so I can read the chat properly. All right, we are caught up there. JL, Maddie, also good to see the 2 of you in here as well. Welcome and thanks for being here. All right. So unfortunately, I did not see a lot of wrestling news or didn't even have time to really look into too much wrestling news today other than the news that we got coming out of AEW. They have landed Camille. So Camille has signed with AEW. I kind of thought for sure she was going to go to WWE. I thought she would be good in that system, especially getting her in NXT, you know, and working with her and get her on the main roster and put her next to Charlotte and Bianca and Jade. And oh my God, you know, these crazy, amazing looking women. I really thought, you know, maybe being reunited with Nick Aldis in some way, you know, perhaps maybe being his assistant or something like that, or somebody that maybe he brings in might be fun. So I was kind of thinking she'd come to WWE, but she has chose to sign with AEW. So Tony Khan is really working hard to sign up some of these, you know, women free agents as well. And they've landed some big ones here that have really upped their game with Mercedes Moné and Deonna Purrazzo, and now Camille. I'm excited to see what she does there. So that's kind of big news. Free agent signing, landing with AEW this week. Best of luck to Camille. We like Camille a little bit. We've seen her in AEW, or I'm sorry, in NWA, and she has made an appearance or 2 in AEW. That clip is floating around of her and Layla Hirsch. Hirsch comes up here to where I think Jordan Grace said something like one motorboat and it's over. So getting Camille back in an AEW ring, I think will be pretty cool because we're fans of Camille. Saw her at WrestleCon walking her dog around the streets of LA. So best of luck to Camille and her run in AEW. And Camille is also the name of my niece, so I root for anybody named Camille. What's up, Camille, if you're watching? But in terms of tonight's WWE Raw WWE Draft Night 2, let's get into that. Raw tonight emanated from St. Louis, Missouri, or Kansas City, not St. Louis. Where the fuck were they? They were, because Pat Mahomes was there. I guess they were in Kansas City. Yeah, they were in Kansas City, not St. Louis. They're in Kansas City tonight for Monday Night Raw, and the show opens up in the parking lot. WWE, this new regime, this new production regime, loves the parking lot. And WWE always did, but it felt like they cut back to the parking lot, showing superstars arrive to the building like 6 different times in the first hour alone tonight. So everybody showing up in the parking lot was fun. Damian Priest and Logan Paul kind of meet up in the parking lot, and Pat Mahomes is with these guys. So they're all kind of shooting the shit out there, arriving to the show, all looking fly in all their gear. And I'm like, but why is Pat Mahomes hanging out with heels in his own town? Like, I would expect them to do that if, we went to Philly or something like that, or someplace, that has suffered a loss to the Chiefs somewhere in the country. Might have been better, but Mahomes acting like a heel in his own town is kind of funny because the Chiefs are kind of heels anyway. So I did like a lot of that. And then Michael Cole and Pat McAfee welcomed us to the show. I kind of really liked that. Were they standing on the outside of the ring? I kind of feel like they were standing on the outside of the ring, kind of like how Vince and Bobby and Savage used to do it in the early days of Monday Night Raw. Remember, we would go to the arena, or Raw would start, and then Vince and Savage would sometimes just be standing on the outside of the ring, maybe like next to the commentary table, welcoming us to Raw. I like kind of how they did that. It's kind of a little throwback. I really, really appreciated that. And I thought that was cool. These little kind of new intros and, just changing things up. It's just nice with this production. Has been such a breath of fresh air. These great entrances, these long, steady sweeping camera shots, these transitions, all these effects that they've been doing have been such a huge step up, and a nice thing to see for a fan that's been watching their formulaic nonsense for so long. So we got welcomed to the show by our announce team, and then Becky Lynch opened up the show. And of course, last week, Becky Lynch became the new Women's World Champion, winning that Battle Royal, last eliminating Liv Morgan. I think it was Liv, Becky, and Nia Jax were the final three. And Becky Lynch did win, and I was surprised. I thought it would be Liv Morgan. And I still think it should have been, to be honest. And it looks like they're setting up now a match with Liv Morgan and Becky Lynch. Liv won a number one contenders match tonight. But if they're going to put the belt on Liv Morgan, why didn't they just have her win the Battle Royal? I don't know what that was about. The only thing I can think of is maybe, like I said last week, maybe Becky was planned to be off the road with Seth, but then when Ripley got injured, they asked her to come back, so they made her champion so they can put her on the overseas tours or whatnot, or put her on the road or something to make up for the void that Rhea is leaving since she's injured, maybe. But other than that, I don't know if they're going to put the belt on Liv. If Liv winds up beating Becky Lynch for the title, and then Rhea comes back and beats Liv Morgan, that's fine, but why didn't Liv Morgan just win the title in the Battle Royal? Why did we give Becky a random title run for no reason? All you had to do is give it to Liv from the start. Maybe fans argue, oh, well, a win over Becky Lynch would be bigger. It would be a big feather in her cap. Okay, then why didn't they just have those two wrestle for the championship, or have the Battle Royal with the final two wrestles the next week on Raw? And there, you got your Becky and Liv one-on-one match, and Liv can still win. It feels like if Liv winds up taking this title from Becky Lynch, it's going to feel like they gave her that title run for no reason. The only reason I can think of is to put Becky on the road as champion, thinking in WWE's mind that, losing a top star like Rhea, you need to replace her, that spoke in the wheel, with another top star, not somebody lower on the card than her, like Liv Morgan. So replace one top star with another. Maybe that was their thinking on it, but if it was up to me and Rhea Ripley is going to rehab her injury and come back and just murder Liv Morgan anyway, then just make Liv Morgan the champion. I don't understand. But anyway, it also gives Becky something to do, gets her back in the mix, puts the title around her, over her shoulder again, and she kind of fell, ass backwards into this. Becky would not be champion right now had Rhea Ripley not gotten injured. So Becky opened up the show. And she mentioned, I didn't know this, but I guess where they were tonight, that's the same building where the punch to the face, where it exploded her face and all that. That's where it all happened, right? She mentioned that almost 6 years ago, before Survivor Series, and all that. I was at Survivor Series that year in Los Angeles, and I had to watch Charlotte and Ronda instead of Becky Lynch and Ronda because of that. But I guess that's the same building where that happened. And she talked for a little while. I don't listen to her when she talks. And then Liv Morgan comes out and says, hey, if you're looking for a number one contender, I'd be happy to be a number one contender. And then Nia Jax comes out, and that's when Michael Cole immediately said, hey, the reason she's here is because the draft's picks don't take effect until Friday, I guess, on SmackDown. By the way, will somebody inform me? Because I don't know. Inform me in the chat. What's going on with SmackDown on Friday? Are we taping that? We have to tape it, right? Because Backlash is like the next day in France. So they have to tape it. When's it being taped? I don't even know this. I don't know this stuff. You guys have to tell me. So Nia Jax then comes out and she's on the apron and she talks some smack. I guess they kind of set up a little number one contenders match bout later on between Nia Jax and Liv Morgan, and Liv Morgan comes in with a drop kick and knocks her off the apron, and that was kind of the end of that segment, and Liv and Nia Jax would be facing each other later on. We then cut backstage briefly to see Stephanie McMahon back there with a production lady who's walking her to the ring, and you can tell she's got cards in her hand. And I'm like, oh, she's going to be out here to announce the first round of the draft for Raw, or for both brands. And we saw Stephanie at WrestleMania, and now we're seeing Stephanie on Raw. Now, she's married to Triple H, so it's not like she's completely, removed from all things WWE, but seeing her slowly kind of peek her head in, and not just peek herself in quietly. She's on television. She opened up, what night 2 of Mania? Or maybe night 1, I forgot which night, but she opened one of those, and now she's on Monday Night Raw. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but this kind of feels like she's on her way back to the company in some capacity. I think that would be great. I got nothing against Stephanie. Stephanie's well-liked, apparently, in the company. Everything we've heard from people who work there is that Stephanie was well-liked and respected, and, she wasn't crazy or nothing. So I think a lot of the talent liked working with her, and, as long as they feel like her connection to her dad, isn't going to cause any more issues for WWE, I can totally see Stephanie coming back into the fold, and I honestly kind of hope that she does. Even though WWE is sold off and part of a different company now, I always thought that, back in the day, it's probably going to be Stephanie and Triple H. Didn't know The Rock would be involved in this, but Stephanie and Triple H, either running the company, owning the company, or, as it's probably going to turn out, just holding large positions in the company. I think that's great. So we'll see if Stephanie is just showing up sometimes to, show solidarity with her husband, or just to, say hello to the fans or whatnot. But I feel like if she's starting to turn up and starting to show up, eventually she's probably going to resume some sort of role in the company. So we'll keep our eye on that with Stephanie, whatever happens there. So she came out to announce round 1 of the draft. And with Raw's first pick, because on Friday, SmackDown got the first pick every round, Raw takes in their first pick of the first round, Gunther and Kaiser, the Imperium. So it's just the two of them. They kicked out Vinci. So Gunther and Kaiser get drafted to Monday Night Raw. Like I said, that surprised me. I feel like Gunther doesn't have a real issue at the moment right now with anyone. Like, he's freed up storyline-wise to make the move. Even though him and Kaiser kicked out Vinci last week, I thought that might have just been WWE's way of getting Vinci separated so he can go to singles. You can move Gunther and Kaiser to SmackDown, allow Vinci to create his own character on Monday Night Raw and get over somehow as a single star, and then maybe, have a run-in with Imperium down the line, when there's a pay-per-view or something, or maybe there's a trade that happens. I don't know. Might have been fun to see them come back together 6 months to a year from now. But instead, it looks like they're going to both stay on Raw and probably be feuding with Vinci in some way, even though I'm not sure he was drafted tonight either. So he might get sent to SmackDown in the supplemental that we see. So Gunther and Kaiser to Raw. That's not that surprising. I'd pick Gunther first too, but when you look at who was on the board, I mean, you had Punk and Drew and Judgment Day and Gunther. Those are all big picks there. So SmackDown's second pick was Jade Cargill. That makes sense. That's where she's been doing the majority of her stuff. That's where Bianca Belair is. Like I said earlier with Tiffany, I didn't really want to see anybody get drafted to a brand if they have a title shot against another brand's champion at the pay-per-view this weekend. But one fun thing, one exception to that, was with Jade and Bianca. I thought that might be kind of cool if you drafted them to separate brands, but then they win the tag team titles at Backlash, which they're gonna. I don't know how they're not gonna. So they're gonna win the titles, I would assume, at Backlash. And I thought it would have been cool if they were champions, and of course they could float brands, make all their appearances, but technically they belong to separate brands. So when they lose the championships, they go their separate ways. And that might be kind of cool. So I even asked that on Twitter earlier on in the day. I had this idea at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm like, what would you do? Would you draft Jade to a different brand? That way, when they lose the titles, they're split up. Or would you keep Jade and Bianca together and maybe use the tag team title loss as a way to kickstart their program? So sounds like it's going to be the latter, and she's going to be on SmackDown. So she was pick number 2. Raw's second pick of the first round was Damage Control. Had a feeling they would be making the jump. I'm glad they're making the jump. Damage Control coming to Raw is excellent. That's a good move. That's actually one draft pick that I wholeheartedly agree with because they're a good crew. I don't want to see them split up yet. They've done pretty much everything they can do over on SmackDown, and now it allows Bayley, to have fresh matchups over there because she's going to beat Tiffany and Naomi and then probably move on to something else. And I think it'll probably wind up being Tiffany who takes that belt from her. I'm just hoping that comes, later on in the summer, SummerSlam, something like that in terms of Backlash. I think she's going to retain. And hopefully Bayley has a nice, fun, healthy little run there on SmackDown, free and clear of Damage Control. And then SmackDown's second pick and final pick of the first round, Kevin Owens, KO. That is pretty obvious as well. He's got the thing with the Bloodline right now, tag team match with Randy Orton. Not that they couldn't have moved KO, because if they did, that would be interesting, having Sami Zayn on Monday Night Raw, and CM Punk and some other people. But KO staying on SmackDown was pretty much fine with me. So that was round 1 of the draft. Now we get our first matchup. We get Gunther against Xavier. So this year, by the way, I would just like to offer my congratulations officially right now here on April 29th, 2024. I would like to congratulate Gunther on becoming the 2024 King of the Ring because he's going to. There is absolutely no fucking way anybody but Gunther is winning that for the men. It's just not. You heard. I don't die on hills, and I don't sit there and I claim and proclaim that I speak facts and I know better than everybody else. I don't. But let me tell you this. Gunther is winning the King of the Ring. Abso-fucking-lutely. The qualifying matches haven't even started yet, and I can already tell you who the winner is. So we have this year's winner taking on the winner from a couple of years ago, Xavier Woods. We had some more glitchy shit happen during the match. I don't know if a QR code popped up. Let me know if it did, what you saw on that. More Uncle Howdy teases. Those are still ongoing. Those are still happening. I guess that's going to be SmackDown whenever it debuts, but shit, I don't know. It could be Raw as well. We're not even totally sure yet. So we had glitchy shit there. The match was pretty fun. It was actually kind of funny. Gunther's got, I don't even know what move he's got him in. Oh, it's an STF or a leg lock or something like that. I don't know what he's got on Xavier. And Xavier's screaming and flailing around, and Kofi runs to the timekeeper's area and says, give me a towel, give me a towel. He's going to throw in the towel. And Xavier's like, no, I can do it. And he elects not to throw in the towel. And then Woods taps anyway. It was pretty funny. So Gunther beat Xavier Woods there. And Gunther and Imperium continue to roll on Monday Night Raw. Round 2 is up next. We have Logan and what's his name? I Love Speed or something, whatever that fucking guy's name is, joined Logan Paul out there to announce the round 2 picks. Raw's first pick of round 2 is CM Punk. So Punk stays on Raw in round 2. Not really surprised about that. It would have been cool to see Punk maybe go to SmackDown, maybe feud with Cody or something like that. But I think Raw is where he needed to stay because that's where his issue with Drew McIntyre has been taking place. And I wouldn't screw that up right now. It's too good. So CM Punk staying on Raw was not a surprise. SmackDown then selects The Pride. Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits are staying on SmackDown. Again, no surprise there. Bianca Belair is on SmackDown, so they're going to keep her and Tez together. Monday Night Raw selected Braun Strowman. So that was not a very big surprise there either. Strowman, we heard about him being in the arena today, spotted in Kansas City. Also, he was shown in the draft pool, so you knew he was going to be going somewhere, and he's been out for a while, and we would see him show up later on in the next match. And then the final pick of the second round was SmackDown selecting Tiffany Stratton. So Tiffy time stays on SmackDown, and that's really not that surprising either, to be honest. After that, Logan then comes to the ring. Logan Paul then walks to the ring with his U.S. title. He starts talking shit about Jey Uso, saying Damian Priest is going to beat Jey Uso. And then Jey Uso comes out and tries to talk smack to Logan Paul, which Logan just literally brushes off. He's like, "You're really out here trying to talk smack to me?" It was pretty funny. Logan, not a lot of people can even touch Logan on the mic, to be honest. That's what a fucking star that dude is. So they talk a little bit of smack, and then Jey Uso comes out. Like I said, they were talking smack, but I had another item here written in my notes earlier on in the show, maybe a couple of segments earlier. Jey Uso was backstage doing an interview with Kathy Kelly, right? During the interview, if you look behind them, you saw Liv Morgan like coming out of Dominic's dressing room, and then Dominic following out shortly thereafter. And I said last week when the two of them had that face-to-face, I'm like, what Liv is going to do, or what she at least needs to do, is to seduce Dom. Take Rhea's man. Like, she's on her revenge tour. That's the way women are. They're fucking vicious and malicious, man. So if Liv could take her title, you know, she could take her spot on the card, she could take her man. She was the one that put her out of action to begin with, and I think that would be a lot of fun, and I feel like they followed up with that tonight on Raw. So that's going to be finally the end, which is kind of sad. I mean, I guess it's time. It's been a long time of Mommy and Dominic. You know, it's been a long time since ketchup was too spicy for him on the chicken tenders and stuff. And I think that it's probably realistic now that it's time to wind that down. And I think that also with, you know, the LWO and also Legado del Fantasma, you know, maybe Dominic could wind up leaving Judgment Day for Legado, even though they're kind of on separate brands. I feel like that might be happening in the future as well. And if he starts something with Liv Morgan, you know, Rhea Ripley's not going to like that, and the whole damn Judgment Day is probably going to wind up imploding right around the same time Priest might lose his championship. So there's a lot of problems right now in Judgment Day, and Dominic being spotted there with Liv Morgan in the background didn't help matters. But back in the ring, it was, like I said, it was Logan Paul and Jey Uso. And they then begin to fight, like a brawl breaks out, and then Logan Paul goes to the outside of the ring, and Pat Mahomes is on the outside of the ring at ringside watching, and Logan gets all three of Pat Mahomes' Super Bowl rings, and he puts them on his hand. And by this point, I think JD McDonough and Balor are out there too, right? So he puts the knuckles on his hand. He goes to hit Jey Uso. I think JD McDonough is holding him. He goes to hit Uso. He ducks. He nails JD right in the face. And they're all laughing at JD. And later on, JD would reveal, they did a great makeup job on him. It basically looked like he had Cody Rhodes' pec injury on his face. Just red and bright red, or all that shit that Toni Storm had on her when she cut her promo in color. It was kind of like that, but all on JD's face. So he got fucked up by the Super Bowl rings, which was funny. Judgment Day then, or Balor and Logan then jump back on Jey Uso and start beating him down until Braun Strowman then makes the save. So he comes back. He looks a lot bigger than he did before. He now kind of has like a faux hawk or something, or some sort of hair that he did not have before. Also looks a little bit bigger. Gave a real stiff, delayed choke slam to Finn Balor in the ring, and even got in Pat Mahomes' face a little bit. He chased off Logan Paul. By the way, Logan Paul ran off with Pat Mahomes' Super Bowl rings, all three of them. So he stole his rings, ran away, and then Strowman kind of faced off with some of the big linebackers or whatever that were there with Pat Mahomes, and Jey Uso kind of backed off Strowman and saved Pat Mahomes' life. So I like that. Still not sure why Pat Mahomes is being a heel in his own town. Maybe they're just playing into the fact that Pat Mahomes is a heel and a lot of fans hate the Kansas City Chiefs. So maybe that's what they're just leaning into that a little bit. Plus they're in their hometown and it's just all in the fun. But it was kind of funny. You usually don't see hometown sports athletes in the front row of a wrestling show helping out the heels. I don't know if we've ever seen that, to be honest with you. So that whole segment was, I think, relatively entertaining. And then it was time for Awesome Truth. They are backstage. Truth had struck up some deal with Chad Gable to give Alpha Academy a title shot, I think. Miz shows up, like, what's going on? And Awesome Truth thinks that it's the NFL draft and that him and Miz could get drafted to the Seahawks or some shit. And then Miz reminds him that it's not the NFL draft, it's the WWE draft. But if, maybe you can go talk to Pat Mahomes or something. He goes, the insurance guy? So more silliness from R-Truth. So Awesome Truth then leaves, and they leave Gable all by himself. And then out of nowhere comes a haluva kick into frame, taking out Chad Gable. At least I think it was a haluva kick. And Sami Zayn gets a little bit of payback for what happened to him a couple of weeks ago. And even the announcers were like, that had to feel so good to kick Gable. So what I thought was going to happen as soon as Sami came in to kick him was that Gable was probably going to interfere in the championship match that was coming up later with Sami Zayn and Bronson Reed. We then go backstage to a Booker T interview, and he's just kind of mentioning some of the picks and what he thinks, and he mentioned CM Punk and how huge that was for Raw to land him. And then Drew McIntyre appears behind Booker T, and Drew is standing there being like, tell me you didn't just say that, and you've changed. He tells Booker T that he's changed. I was here 10 years ago. You didn't like CM Punk either. What's happened to you? So basically all Booker did was just say it was a big pick, but it's gotten in Drew's head now that Punk went so far ahead of Drew in the draft. So he gives Booker T a little bit of shit. I thought he was maybe going to attack him, but he did not. After that was the Intercontinental Championship match between Sami Zayn and Bronson Reed. This one I liked, but was somewhat predictable. Sami Zayn just won the title. He's not dropping it yet. So Reed had no real chance of winning it here. But then again, you don't want to beat Reed. So with Zayn attacking Gable in the back, Gable predictably comes in, attacks Sami Zayn. Zayn wins via disqualification. And then Bronson Reed winds up laying out both men. So he lays out Gable and Sami Zayn, and that might lead us to a similar situation to what we're seeing on SmackDown with Tiffany and Bayley and Naomi. I have not looked at the Backlash card. Have they announced any other matches? We had 5 at last count over the weekend, or 4. No, 5, I think. Well, shit, now I can't remember. But I don't know if they're going to tack an extra one on, like another IC match or maybe another tag match. I'm not sure. And then it was time for round 3 of the draft. Who did this one? I don't have. Oh, I think it was the APA. I don't have the guest presenters here written for round 3, but I think it was Ron Simmons and JBL. Raw selected the LWO, and the LWO, as of right now, still consists of Carlito. So that was smart. That was smart to wait. Now it makes sense, because the other night on SmackDown, I'm like, why did they wait so long to do the Carlito turn? We thought this was happening at WrestleMania. So by waiting to do the turn, he's technically still a member of the LWO. So he was able to be drafted with them to Raw, and he can continue his issue with them over there. So that was actually kind of smart. So the LWO, including Carlito, is coming to Monday Night Raw, and SmackDown is going to keep Legado del Fantasma. So it's actually good that those two factions are separated, because that was getting a little bit confusing to me, trying to follow that kind of with one eye open on SmackDown. I'm like, it's too many moving parts here. So getting those two groups separated is going to be easier for me anyway as a fan. Then finally, in the second pick of round 3, or third pick of round 3, Raw's second pick of round 3, they finally pick Drew McIntyre. So it took him until the second pick of the third round to finally get selected. And Drew, as expected, is sticking around on Monday Night Raw. And SmackDown closes out the round by selecting Shinsuke Nakamura. That is another random star that I did predict to move to SmackDown. Felt like that's something they could do, or would do, since Nakamura's pretty much ran through everybody on Monday Night Raw now. So right after that, Drew McIntyre comes out. This was so good. This is my favorite segment of the night. After round 3, McIntyre storms to the ring. He's so pissed off, and he gets on the mic and he says that he shouldn't have gone so late, why he was picked so late. He said Punk at WrestleMania injured him. Oh, shit. He said Punk injured him, and we do know that Drew has been working through an injury and is maybe taking a little bit of time off from wrestling matches anyway in that injury. And he said, unlike Punk, he's not going to leave He's not going to be leaving. He's going to sit here and work through his injury because he's not a pussy. And then CM Punk's music hits. So we're like, holy shit, out comes CM Punk, but he doesn't come out. And so McIntyre's like, oh yeah, you're just trolling me. You don't have the balls to come out here. And then Punk is like, hey, you can hear Punk on the microphone, and he appears from up in the skybox, and he says, I'm right here, you little bitch. And the way he delivered the line was just hilarious. So he's up there now in the box. He's waving to him. He's trolling him. And Drew is just steaming mad even more. And but basically Punk just taunts him from the skybox. So Drew then leaves the ring. He storms out, seemingly to go hunt for CM Punk. And that's when we cut backstage to see Chad Gable going into the locker room and yelling at Alpha Academy, because we know he's going to be treating them like shit. We saw that last week. This is just going to be, some sort of a burn here until they finally decide to ditch him or he ditches them. But he comes in and starts running them all down. But I didn't hear anything Chad Gable was saying because I couldn't stop looking at Maxine. Oh, brother, my God. So he yells at them, and that was that. Then we cut to the hallway where we have Sheamus talking to Braun Breaker, kind of getting in his face. That might be Braun Breaker's first big star to crush is going to be Sheamus. As the two of them are talking, Drew just is power walking behind them, right past them, in and out of frame in like a second, just going straight to find CM Punk, which I really liked. In the past, under Kevin Dunn, when a wrestler goes to the back to look for something else, it's very much shot the same way. This is just a little bit different. These little changes that they've been making, I like. You got Sheamus and Breaker talking, and you see Drew cross over, these two, segments kind of overlapping, reminding the audience, hey, Drew is on the lookout for, or on the hunt, I should say, for CM Punk. So he goes looking for him. We then get an LWO interview backstage, which was pretty funny. They're talking about now being on the Monday Night Raw brand. And Dominic shows up and says, hey, what's up? Look at this old geezer, and makes fun of his dad. And then Ray goes, what's that shit on your face there, you dirty Sanchez? Because he's starting to grow a little mustache there, which was pretty funny. So fun interaction there with the LWO. So we had Sheamus and Braun Breaker, and then we had Chad Gable, and then the LWO. But one thing I forgot to mention, in between Sheamus and Breaker and the LWO interview, we actually had the one-on-one match. Maxine Dupree taking on Candice LeRae. So that was up next. And Candice LeRae got the win, dusting off the old wicked stepmother for the win there, and puts down Maxine, and that would kind of be the closure to their feud, because I think Candice, would be heading off to SmackDown later on. So she got the best of Maxine, even though Maxine had her moments in that match. She almost put Candice down, but we also had that match in there as well in between all of those interviews. Then we catch back up with Drew McIntyre, who is now up at the upper level. He's in the skybox area. He's asking everybody, where the fuck is Punk? Where the fuck is Punk? So much time has gone by now. We've had 2 commercial breaks, 3 interviews, and a wrestling match, and Drew is just getting his Scottish ass up there now looking for CM Punk. Did he think he was going to be there? So he storms into the skybox. Of course, Punk is gone. The timing of this was so perfect. He storms in there. Punk is gone. There's an autographed picture of Punk sitting on the table there. And then as soon as Drew picks it up and looks at it, Punk's music starts playing again, and he starts coming to the ring. So now Drew is up there, Punk's walking to the ring. I got the hugest kick out of that, because Punk has done an exquisite job of turning the trolling tables on Drew. And all that trolling Drew did, you knew he was going to be getting it back. The fucking t-shirts, and he did a masterful job. McIntyre driving past the muffin place and the shit he was doing on Instagram. A lot of that stuff was really good. And a lot of it was borderlining on the excessive. He was doing it so much. In my mind, there was no way CM Punk wasn't going to get revenge at WrestleMania. The more and more Drew trolled Punk, the more I was thinking that he was going to win that belt and then drop it, or just get somehow screwed over by CM Punk at WrestleMania, and that would be the tipping point. And that's what we saw. Now Punk is completely in the driver's seat. He's the one who injured McIntyre. He even said as much. He goes, "You prayed for me to get injured, but I'm the one that did that to you." And the way that he's now gotten on Drew's head, you can see it in Drew's face. He's seething with anger whenever Punk talks to him. He has completely flipped the script on this whole feud, and it's been great. It's been brilliantly done, and it's been brilliantly done through an injury. And by the way, Punk had no shit on his arm. He actually looked in great shape, looked tanned and oiled. He had his cutoff t-shirt on, no elbow brace. So he feels like he's getting close, man, to actually, maybe getting back in the mix again, and that's great. And he did a masterful job here of trolling Drew McIntyre. When he got in the ring, he said something like, "I've always liked the town of St. Louis and everybody," I keep saying St. Louis, the town of Kansas City and everybody who lives here. So I'm not going to waste your time. I'm just going to take as much time as, let's say, that Drew McIntyre was world champion for at WrestleMania. 5 minutes. I won't be out here any longer than 5 minutes. He sits down in the ring and he just starts eviscerating Drew McIntyre, who is now up in the skybox watching him from up there. I thought McIntyre was going to try to run back down or through the crowd or something, but I think he understood that he's probably not going to get to CM Punk in time, and Punk cut a hell of a promo there. And I really like how they're telling the story of Drew now. He's the one, that's not handling this well. He's the one that's getting trolled. And now Punk is, almost out cooling him, because Punk was at home on the shelf during a lot of the trolling that Drew was doing. So we didn't get to see Punk's direct response. But with Punk doing it to Drew, you're seeing it all over McIntyre's face. He's getting more and more pissed off. So this has all been a lot of fun. I really, really enjoyed that segment tonight on Raw between Drew McIntyre and CM Punk. So far, everything the two of them have done on television has been good, right? I mean, all the interaction they had on Raw prior to WrestleMania, the angle they did at WrestleMania was tremendous. This one here was very good. They had that promo. What was it? Him and Seth and Drew, right? Punk, Seth, and Drew had that great segment on Monday Night Raw, which was just phenomenal. So every time McIntyre and Punk have been in the ring or in a segment involved together, it's been money. It's been money. So hopefully it just translates into the wrestling ring when that time comes. And I liked everything we saw from those guys tonight. A lot of fun. Now it was time for round 4. Cuatro means 4 in Spanish. No, it does. For real. You can look it up. Round 4 of the WWE draft was going to be announced. The picks were going to be announced by Teddy Long and Alundra Blaze. So Teddy and Medusa were the announcers for this one. Punk is now leaving the ring at this point, and he gives Teddy Long a big hug and a really fun kind of hug and kiss to Medusa. I don't know what their history is there, but they definitely had a little thing there. It was pretty funny. And now we were on to round 4. So Raw selects in the first pick of round 4, finally, the Judgment Day. I was getting a little bit worried. The longer they went without being picked, I'm like, I know this is a bullshit draft and wrestling's fake and everything, but what in kayfabe is the reasoning for not drafting the top faction on that brand, and arguably the second top faction overall in the company? What's your reasoning behind not drafting them sooner? I guess they could use the injuries. That is an excuse they have right now. Rhea Ripley not only lost her title, but she's injured on the shelf. Dom injured on the shelf. So it doesn't really leave, and Priest is protected. So with the championship. So really all you got there is Balor and JD. So I guess that was maybe the reasoning for Judgment Day to go down this far. But I was starting to feel like they might move to SmackDown. I'm like, is that Tito? I don't know what's going on. It's either Tito or an earthquake, one or the other. I started thinking, I'm like, I did feel like it was really unfortunate for Damian Priest that as soon as he won the championship, Ripley got injured. And then Dom has got the thing. And I feel like, what horrible timing there. You could play into this a little bit of the storyline if you were to say, for example, draft Judgment Day to SmackDown. You'd leave Priest crewless. He's got nobody now. And he's a champion. Nobody to watch his back. He's going to be extremely vulnerable with no crew. Crewless. That's what I said. Not clueless, crewless. And he's going to be extremely ripe and vulnerable as a champion if you're a heel previously backed up by several individuals, and now you got no one. You're going to be, that could be a good reason if you wanted to give him a short title run and have McIntyre or whoever beat him for it at Clash at the Castle, although I'm starting to think that might not be happening now. But I feel like McIntyre winning at the Clash is what I would do. But they might not even do that. So I thought maybe Judgment Day could leave Priest by himself, and that could create a lot of problems for him. But Judgment Day remained on Raw. Honestly, I think that's for the best. I do like Judgment Day still, even though they're on shaky ground right now. They've got some injuries. They've run into some bad luck. I still like them as a faction, and I'm glad they're sticking around on Monday Night Raw. SmackDown picked up Naomi. No surprise there. Naomi's probably going to stick around there because I think Jimmy and Roman will also stay there when they come back. Jimmy Uso was not in either draft pool, and Paul Heyman withdrew Roman Reigns from the first draft pool. So those guys are probably going to come back into the fold when they're healthy or ready or whatever on SmackDown. So Naomi going there was not that shocking. And then Raw picked up finally an NXT star in Ilya Dragunov, coming to Monday Night Raw. That's awesome. I am ready for him. And now Dragunov and Gunther are on the same brand. I actually was surprised by that. I thought they might separate them. But Dragunov and Gunther, I would hold off on that as long as possible. Just do not rush into that one. Let's just give that one some time and get Dragunov off going right on the Raw brand. It's going to be fun to see him there. And then SmackDown picked up Chelsea Green and Piper Niven. So Adam Pearce is rid of Chelsea Green. He's very, very happy about that, as he would say in a later interview tonight on Raw. And now it's going to be Nick Aldis's problem. And I forget what's the name of the guy? There's the ring announcer on SmackDown. He's going to have to try to do Chelsea Green's entrance. I want him to at least attempt it. I want him to at least try to do Samantha's entrance or announcement for Chelsea. I'd like to see him give it a shot. Might be fun. So Chelsea and Piper heading to SmackDown. I think that's also a good move. Then it was time for that one-on-one match between Liv Morgan and Nia Jax. Tiffany Stratton was randomly at ringside for this one. I don't know why. She was watching it there in the front row. And during the match, Naomi would show up and attack Tiffany. I guess they're all in the building for the draft. She attacks Tiffany. They are brawling now on the inside of the ringside area there. And Naomi jumps up on the apron at one point. Nia Jax knocks her off, and that gives Liv Morgan enough time to hit Nia with the Oblivion and get the win. And this win earned her, I guess, a title shot against Becky Lynch. Whenever that's going to happen, I'm not sure. So we'll see. Liv Morgan is now going to be getting a title shot. And like I said earlier, I'm going to be surprised if she wins it. If she wins it, I'm going to wonder why she didn't just win the Battle Royal. I don't know. So we'll see what happens there. Now it's time for round 5 of the WWE draft. And the Dudley boys were back out to announce these. They announced on Friday as well, guest presenters on Friday. So they came out for round 5. They brought out a table with them and set it up. And so I was convinced. I'm like, why would they take the time to actually set the table up in the aisleway there unless some schmuck was going to go through the table? But nobody even went through it. They just literally set it up and took it down. So what a jip. They announced the round 5 picks. Raw, with their first pick of round 5, selects the New Day. The New Day is another team I thought might make the jump. They did not. They're going to be sticking around on Monday Night Raw. Another team I thought was going to jump ship was Pretty Deadly. Pretty Deadly stays on SmackDown with their next pick of the 5th round. I had Pretty Deadly heading over to Monday Night Raw. That did not happen. And then Raw, with their next pick, picked Laya Valkyria, right? I want to say Taya Valkyrie. Every time I see this name, I just want to say Taya Valkyrie. I cannot look at Laya Valkyria's name and not say Taya Valkyrie. It's confusing. I don't like it. It's annoying. So Laya Valkyria got drafted to Raw. I barely know anything about her. I don't know the girl that got drafted on Friday either. I don't know shit about her. The only thing I know about Lyra is she was the one that beat Becky for the NXT title, right? So I'm somewhat familiar with her. I've probably seen 5 to 10 minutes total of in-ring action featuring Lyra. So she is now on Monday Night Raw. It'll be exciting to get to know these women a little bit more because, you know, Shawn Michaels is in charge of NXT there. I don't think they're just calling people up willy-nilly. You know, the people that are being called up are ones that they feel, you know, the Hall of Famer Michael Jordan of pro wrestling, Shawn Michaels, feels is ready. You know, if Shawn Michaels is your coach, if Shawn Michaels is your teacher, and he looks at what you do in the ring and deems you ready for primetime TV, who the fuck am I to question him? So I kind of like that Shawn and Triple H kind of have that close relationship because they can probably be pretty honest with each other. You know, they're having phone conversations about who should be called up. You know, Shawn doesn't have to worry about being a yes man or, you know, saying the right thing or being diplomatic. He can have a completely and totally honest conversation with his friend about who's ready and who's not. So I probably, in all honesty, trust the process now more than ever when it comes to NXT call-ups. Because too many times I felt like people were getting called up with either no plan or they weren't ready. And now it feels like maybe a little bit more is going into this. They're definitely making it a big deal at NXT. They're making all the talent come to the PC and sit there for 3 hours for only 2 or 3 of them to get picked. That's fucking wild. But they were, you know, showing support, clapping and cheering when these people got called up, giving them hugs, and Shawn Michaels coming over and, you know, saying, you know, just whispering in their ear, you know, is kind of wholesome. You know, Shawn's helped develop these kids, you know, and to see them now graduate to the main roster to TV, you know, on Shawn Michaels' blessing, and he gives them a little bit of that encouragement, you know, on the way out the door. I've always appreciated that. You know, I've always done that too. Like when I've been a boss in restaurants and stuff. And, you know, I've been like throughout various times in my life, I've kind of been like a mentor, you know, to some people, you know, some younger people. I kind of show them the way or guide them or hold their hand a little bit in life. And, you know, when they leave and go on to other things or get accepted to a good college or something, I've given like a lot of people that have worked for me, like really encouraging, like little pep talks. It might not mean shit to them, but, you know, at the time it meant a lot to me. Like, you're a really good employee. Like, I think you're going to be great in life. You got a great personality, you got a great work ethic. You know, people love you. I've always been really, I've always admired how you've carried yourself, you know, and you can tell these people are going to do well when they venture into adulthood and get married and start families and have jobs and careers and stuff. You know, you can kind of see, you know, sometimes even at a young age, oh yeah, they're going to be just fine. So I can kind of understand that a little bit, you know, from, you know, somebody who's older now and seeing Shawn, you know, welcome the talent and give them, you know, his blessing heading up to the main roster, I think is great. Now, it's also not all Shawn. I think Shawn's hands are probably tied in a lot of this. If WWE wants somebody from NXT, they're going to take them. But I do think Shawn probably has input. Triple H probably listens to him, and it's done with a little bit more, you know, there's a little bit more of a thought process maybe involved now than there was before. And this is just me guessing. This is my guess, you know, and I feel like I am likely to trust the call-up process a little more now than I did before, is all I'm saying there. And then finally in round 5, the final pick of the round goes to SmackDown, and they do select Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell as a team over now to SmackDown. As soon as that pick was made, I tweeted, I'm like, well, I guess that means DIY's heading to SmackDown as well. And they would be, but not before we got our tag team championship match of the night. So we had a lot of titles on the line tonight. Awesome Truth putting their pizza championships on the line against Alpha Academy. Match ended when Otis started choking because he thought the belts were actual pizzas. He ate them, started choking on the belt, and Tozawa had to give him the Heimlich maneuver, and Miz came in and hit Tozawa with the skull-crushing finale to get the win. I'm kidding. That wasn't the finish. I don't even know what the finish was. All I know is Awesome Truth won the match. You know what I did during this match? I went downstairs and made a pound of bacon and then ate it. So I kind of missed the finish to that one, but that's what happened there. Still, pizza champions, Awesome Truth. And now it's time for round 6 of the WWE draft, the final round of the TV WWE draft. The 2 GMs would be out there to make these picks, Adam Pearce and Nick Aldis. And with the first pick of the final round, Raw picks the Final Testament. As I predicted, I said last week, Final Testament's coming to Raw. There's nothing else for them on SmackDown whatsoever. And if Bianca's going to be staying on SmackDown, that means so is Montez. And you just don't need to have the Pride and the Final Testament there together anymore. So Final Testament coming to Raw, that's probably a good move. With the second pick of the 6th round, SmackDown picked DIY. So there you go, Candice and Johnny coming in right behind each other there on SmackDown. Raw selected Bronson Reed, so they're going to hang on to him. Again, not surprising with that one because Bronson is kind of in the middle of that Intercontinental title shit right now. Since he did have a title match that he kind of got fucked out of tonight, it would have been weird if he went to SmackDown. You know what I mean? So Bronson Reed sticking around on Raw was not surprising. And then SmackDown's final pick of the final round from NXT, Blair Davenport, another woman that I'm like, I don't really know much about her either. But then somebody reminded me that she's actually Bea Priestley. So she was one of the first people to actually jump from AEW to WWE. She used to date Will Ospreay back in the day. They're not together anymore. But a few years ago, they were together. And I kind of had completely forgot that Blair Davenport was Bea Priestley because I haven't really watched NXT in a long time. I don't really pay attention to the product at all. So in a way, it makes it fun because when, like I said earlier, as long as I trust, the process and I trust Shawn and Triple H's judgment about who's ready to be called up, I kind of like seeing fresh faces. Oh, this will be fun to get a look at this person, learn who they are. I'm not going to be an asshole and go, who's that? No, I'm going to actually take the time to learn who this person is, look up some of their work, see their matches. And if they really start impressing me, then I can go back and, see their origin stories and how they started and whatnot. So I always thought that, I've always felt that since I've stopped watching NXT, that's going to make it more fun for me when a lot of the talent does come up. So now I've got some women to familiarize myself with. Like I said, I know a little bit about Blair, a little bit about Lyra. I don't know shit about, I forgot her name already, the one that was drafted on Friday night. Don't know shit about her, but I promise you, I will learn. That's what Google's for. And that's what YouTube's for, is for me to get my learn on. So next time I talk to you, I'll know a little bit more about these girls. And then with the main event, it was so funny. I didn't know what the main event was. I was just really distracted during Raw. So I didn't see, if they kept flashing the graphic for the main event, I just kept missing it. So I knew the main event had something to do with Jey Uso. So Jey Uso comes out and I'm like, what is this match again? And I was like, maybe it's Jey Uso versus Finn Balor. I was like, yeah, that's probably what it is. So Jey Uso comes out first and then Ricochet comes out. And I'm like, Ricochet. Oh, okay. It's probably a tag team match. It's probably Jey Uso and Ricochet against Finn Balor and Damian Priest. That's what it is. And then Andrade comes out. And I'm like, I'm lost. I'm like, okay. I'm like, oh, okay. I get it now. It's a 6-man against Judgment Day, against Priest and Balor and JD with that big raspberry on his face that they showed earlier on backstage, which I said looked like Cody Rhodes' pec injury on the face of JD McNugent. So Judgment Day taking on Ricochet, Jey Uso, and Andrade. Pretty good match here, but I was pretty much focused on Damian Priest. I just didn't want to see a champion getting pinned here. Not when you're in the same ring with fucking JD McNugent. So I felt like if Priest takes a pin in the same match consisting of that big head fucker, I'm quitting wrestling. So I was very worried that since I'm not expecting Priest to drop his title at Backlash, that maybe Jay would pick up a pinfall victory over him here. But I didn't want to see that. I just didn't want to see that. And luckily we did not. Turned out to be, I think it was it JD or Finn? I think it's JD who took the splash from Jey Uso for the win there. Pretty good match, I thought. I mean, fun 6-man to close Raw. I mean, pretty standard stuff here, but still good at the same time. You had a whole lot of great talent in that ring, and it was a fun, exciting pro wrestling 6-man match to main event of Raw. That's really all I can say about it. And the babyfaces wound up getting the win as we now head into Backlash this weekend. So let me know your excitement levels, in the chat. How are you feeling about Backlash? I mean, is this, you got any sleeper picks here, or, what do you think is going to happen? I know the crowd should be raucous in France, but I'm not expecting, too many title changes other than Bianca and Jade probably, having their time to shine there. So anyway, let me know what you think. Let me go back to the chat here and see what people are saying. We don't have a huge audience tonight, not a lot going on, so I'm probably just going to go ahead and get out of here, but I will see if you guys have anything else you need me to discuss. Barry, thanks for the 5 more from you. Milk and spam sounds like the most disgusting thing. Well, maybe you should try microwaving it. Mix the milk with the spam, hit it in the microwave for a couple of minutes, maybe add some lemon juice. Give that a shot. See if that kicks it up. I'm a hater for Blair Davenport. Yeah, her and Jamie Hayter do kind of look alike. As a Niner fan, this episode was so difficult to watch. Yeah, I can understand. But the Niners beat the Lions, so I got no sympathy for you. Juliet, thank you for that nice piece of information because I was wondering about him. Appreciate the $2. Dijak tweeted that he's been drafted to Raw. That's good. I like Dijak a lot. I've liked him for, God, how long has he been there now? 5 to 6 years at least. I've always thought he was tremendous. Interacted with him once on social media where he made fun of me being bald, but it was like in a playful way. So there was no blocking involved. And I do think he's pretty funny on social media. And I was hoping that he would find a home on the main roster because I've always thought that he's been main roster ready since 2019. When was his matches with Keith Lee happening? Whenever that was going on, I thought he was more than ready for the main roster then. But just was he part of that? Was Dijak in what's it called? Retribution? Is that what derailed him? I can't remember, but I've always just thought that he was way ready, and I don't know why. It's 2024, and we're just getting him now permanently on the main roster, even though he's had a couple of matches on the main roster. It's a crime. It's a crime. Too bad they're in Lyon and not a nice town like Bordeaux. Yeah, I don't know anything about France. I don't. So I don't know if this town is well liked or not. I'm totally uneducated on that fact. See if you guys have any info in here on this draft at all. Mike Rome, that's his name. Mike Rome is the announcer I'm trying to think of that's going to have to do Chelsea Green's announcing now. Mike Rome, isn't that the guy on like the little short little fucker on ESPN back in the day? Little cocky prick. Kind of looks like Kevin Pollak. If you know who Kevin Pollak is. Isn't his name Mike Rome or something? Wasn't that his name? He like pissed off that tennis player and he like choked him and shit. I thought his name was Mike Rome. I'm glad Lexus King didn't get drafted. I'm not ready for him yet. I don't think anybody is. I just don't think we can handle it. Logan Paul. Think of a Logan Paul and MJF promo battle. That would be good stuff. Logan Paul and MJF. You know, Logan Paul, I think there's nobody, I can't believe I'm saying this. There's nobody I think Logan Paul sweats. There's just, he's such a massive worldwide known star public figure that someone like him isn't going to be like nervous in the moment. You know what I mean? Because he's been in bigger situations, his whole life, so he's not like a rookie, who's just coming into the business and hasn't been in front of a crowd yet and doesn't know how to cut a promo, is all nervous. And, Logan is extremely comfortable in everything he does. That's why he's not going to be, he's always going to be able to outcool, I think, anybody that he's in the ring with, because, he's just going to have that poise to him. He's an amazing pro wrestler, that Logan Paul, I'll tell you. Mahomes is good friends with Logan Paul. Okay, that makes sense. Good morning, Debbie Lifter, wherever you're chiming in from. Oh, thanks. Is it called the Wicked Stepsister, not the Wicked Stepmother? What did I call it? Wicked Stepmother? Whatever it was. I thought it was Wicked Stepmother. Maybe it's Wicked Stepsister. I knew she used to use it back in the day. Haven't seen it in a while. Kiana James, thank you. That's who I'm thinking of. Yeah, and Cora Jade did not get called up. Nikita Lyons, I don't know. I've seen a little bit of her. I'm not that impressed. I mean, I know a lot of, so many wrestling fans, they're just thirsty as all fuck. So I see why she's attractive to them, I guess. But I don't know. I feel like Cora Jade would have been more likely. But, maybe again, it's some of these talents, are going to be fine. Braun Breaker, I thought, was coming up a year ago, remember? So it took a whole nother year. And he's dating Cora Jade, right? Are they still together? So I guess Cora Jade is one that could have came up. So could Nikita Lyons. But I don't know really what went into that thought process too. You know, with those talents in NXT, you know, I'm sure there's some of them there that might be thinking, I'm way better than her, and she got called up. Why didn't I get called up? But that's probably always been the case there. You know, they brought up Maxine, and remember Brooke, what's her name? Dana Brooke came up so early. Even Apollo Crews, you know, and sometimes they were just bringing people up. Like, why are you bringing them up? Why are you bringing up Rick Boogs? You don't even have anything to do with him yet or have any plans for him yet. So hopefully not too many feathers were ruffled there backstage in NXT. That's right, Zane G. Happy early birthday tomorrow. You're going to watch Dark Side of the Ring for your birthday. That's right. You're just a super, super, super crazy, insanely old person like myself. And tomorrow you're just going to be another year older, man. It's all downhill from here, Zane. Oh, my God. I'm just kidding. Happy birthday, brother. Very happy that you're going to have a good one tomorrow. I don't even know what the Dark Side of the Ring subject is. We have to be almost done with them. How many more episodes are left this season? Tonight, or last night, I think it was, was it Steve Austin and Booker T? That's the Rivals, the A&E one. That's such a weird one to do. That rivalry just isn't that storied to me. I mean, they had a thing there for like a year or two, but it wasn't that much. So that's a surprising episode. Next week, I think they're doing Cena and Batista. And then tomorrow is Dark Side of the Ring. And tomorrow is also Zane G's birthday. So wish our friend a happy birthday. Mike Witt, thank you for the $5, my friend. The Ultimate Swerve, Dragunov joins Imperium. Still think we're getting Demon Balor versus Priest at SummerSlam. That would be good. I didn't think about Dragunov joining Imperium. That could work. It's just, I also think he can stand on his own. You know, the Imperium is led by Gunther. And I don't know if Dragunov can be second in command, you know, especially when he's beat Gunther before. But I could see that. They've made room for him. They've kicked out what's his nuts. So I feel like now Ludwig's really going to be a joke of the team. If it's Gunther and Dragunov and Ludwig, give me a break. So yeah, Mike, we might see that though. Jim Rome, that's his name. That's right, Jim Rome, that little fucker. Oh man, every time I saw his show, I'm like, this guy's an asshole. This guy's a fucking asshole. Never liked him. Oh, they're okay. Cora Jade and Nikita. Okay, I thought Nikita Lyons was heading back though. I thought she was almost back from injury. I did forget about Cora Jade, and they're not together. Braun and Cora Jade broke up. Okay, well I've seen pictures. Young people don't stay together. Nobody, no celebrities really stay together. But I do remember seeing pictures of them on social media, like within the last year. I guess that's already been there, done that, huh? Well, good for them. Wish the both of them luck. Yeah, Shell Shock, me too. I can't wait for Dragunov and Gunther, but I just hope they wait a little. I mean, SummerSlam's coming up. I'd do it there. SummerSlam would be great, but what would you do it for? There's no championship really to be won unless, you know, Dragunov beats Sami Zayn or something for the Intercontinental title, and then you do Gunther and Dragunov for the IC. And then just Gunther wins it again, though. So I don't know. I don't even know what you do there with those two. You might have to pair them to prolong the feud, because I mean at some point you think they're going to have a run-in or something like that, or they're going to have to start doing something together. So maybe aligning them for a while is a good way to prolong that inevitable match happening. And when it does, what are the stakes going to be and what's the story going to be? That's a whole other thing. So yeah, as much as I love Sol Ruka, she's not ready yet. I just like her, you know, so I see good things in her. And hopefully, and she's recovering from an injury too, as well, right? So once she gets back on track, that will be a good time. Zach's here. What's up, Zach? Appreciate your comment. 6 months with me now as a kayfabe brother. Called it, bro. DIY to SmackDown. Time for a tag team title feud with Theory and Waller. Hearing the Mania 41 in Vegas rumors. Yes, I am. I am definitely hearing that, and I'm starting to feel pretty confident. I broke the news to Elizabeth yesterday. I was like, babe, have you heard me on the talk about the WrestleMania at all on the podcast? She goes, no, not really. And I'm like, well, I think it's going to be in Vegas, and I just want you to know we're going. we're going to go hard. So it's just like, okay, I'm like, we'll figure it out. We'll work it out financially. We got a lot of trips coming up, and I probably have a summer vacation next year as well to do. So I'm like, we got to make room for WrestleMania, because if it's going to Vegas, we got to be there. And I want to spend a good portion of the week there where we can hang out and do a lot of stuff, because Vegas is the best. It's the fucking best. Everything is right there. My goal, I told her, I'm like, just get a hotel near Allegiant Stadium. And my goal is when we drive to the hotel and park, we never get back in our car. We are on foot for the whole weekend, just going from wherever we need to be. Hopefully WrestleCon's nearby and none of it is too far away, or too far of a walk away anyway. And it's just so much better than LA. LA was a pain in the ass, Zach, going all the way to SoFi, and WrestleCon was downtown. And then we met at Staples Center, and did all that. All that shit's way too spread out. Vegas, it's just all there. It's so fucking fun. And when I was in Vegas for Double or Nothing a couple years ago, it was an excellent way to just hang out and have some beers with fans and listeners, and just, hey, come meet over here, just meet here. We can all just walk and show up, and it's a party. So I'm really hoping that WrestleMania 41 will be in Vegas. We will do a huge video. We're going to do even more content than we did for WrestleMania 39 in LA. It's going to be fun. So holding out hope, man. And the longer it goes, the more I think it's actually going to be there. I feel like if it was going to be Minneapolis, we would know that by now. So the fact that they've delayed things and they're not announcing it, I think, like I said last weekend on the podcast, has a lot to do with The Rock. I think if The Rock is going to be in the main event, that is a match made for a market like Vegas, not Minneapolis. So I think if that's what they're going to do, give Minneapolis WrestleMania 42, because they definitely deserve one. But maybe what WWE has on tap and plans creatively is more of a Vegas setting. And maybe that's why they're thinking of changing the area here. But I hope it's Vegas, and I hope we get that information soon. As soon as we do, I'm thinking about booking a hotel already, like go online and just book one that I don't necessarily have to pay for. Maybe just give my credit card for a deposit and book it, but we don't have the dates. We've heard the rumored dates. If it's going to be that May 3rd and 4th shit, I might book some hotels just to book a hotel just to lock in a really good rate right now. And then if it doesn't turn out to be that weekend, or if they're not coming to Vegas, cancel it, something like that. But if it does come to Vegas, everybody, we got 1 year to plan. I would love it if you would come out wherever you live in the country or the world, fly in, come hang out with us. It's going to be a party at WrestleMania 41. I'm looking forward to it. But anyway, I'm going to get out of here. This is a quiet one tonight on Monday Night Raw. I thought we'd have a little bit more interest in our draft episode, but I guess not. Like I said, we're in that algorithm lull, man. It's hitting us, and it's hitting us hard, but we go through this all the time. We will always bounce back, and you guys are here with me every damn day. So what am I complaining about? You guys take care. I will be catching you this week. I will have a Backlash review link up for you soon, maybe like within the next day or so. I'm trying to figure out if I want to get up here for predictions or not. I probably will, but it will probably be like Friday afternoon, really, really late, possibly Thursday. I got to look at my schedule. I got a lot going on, but this will not be the last time you hear from me until the Backlash review. I'll be up here midweek at some point with something for you, probably some predictions and maybe some wrestling news, because we might see some interesting things happen on Dynamite this week that we'll have to talk about. So you will see me again. I just got to figure out exactly when or where, but most likely Thursday, Friday afternoon, I'm going to come up here, give a preview for Backlash, little news brief, and then we'll be here on Saturday for the Backlash review. You guys have a great rest of your Monday night. Thanks as always for being here, and I'll catch you in just a couple of days.